Hey guys, how we doing? Thanks. Don't know if I was supposed to bow or over yet.
That was for Chris.
Yeah, that was for Chris, yeah. Cool, so, bit of a recap this month. There's actually been quite a few cool stuff, quite a few cool bits, and there's also as well been a few features which I'll highlight later on, which I think do represent a lot of the shift we're seeing in the direction of the product and the company as a whole. So I will go into that a little bit later on. First of all, we had pricing updates, if you didn't notice. Yeah, so the CMS plan got removed. So now there's only like the starter plan and then business plan and then obviously enterprise. Didn't go down too well online. If you I had a look through Reddit and stuff like that, and there's a lot of people kind of, yeah, kicking up a bit of a fuss over it. I mean, I think for medium to large customers, it's probably fine and like won't affect them as much. For small customers, it's not as great, but we've known for a while that kind of Webflow's focus is shifting from that. I think, to be fair, like a little tweak that would make it like kind of more justifiable is they added like 50 to 100 CMS items into the small plan, then I think that would cover all bases. But yeah, that's what we've got going forward. Webflow AEO, I think we're going to hear a bit more about this later on. But currently, yeah, just for enterprise. But used to kind of measure representation in like AI chatbots, but also lots of cool agentic stuff that you can kind of just auto-accept, so keeping a human in the loop there. And then we got embed and attribute props. This is really cool. There's lots of kind of new possibilities with that, and you can get prop maxing. So your components can be like very useful. You can use it in styling for like CSS and stuff like that, but a lot of JavaScript options as well. I'm going to be using this a lot. I think this is going to be super useful. And Timothy Ricks has a really cool video on it as well, if you want to check that out. Now on to the shift. So, I mean, this is a bit dramatic, I think, but yeah, I just kind of noticed a few features. They were kind of small things, but I think it kind of represents like bigger changes with the direction we're heading in, and I will explain a little bit more about that when I talk about each of the features. So the first one was log in with GitHub. I mean, this seems like ridiculously like not important, but actually, I think it does kind of represent the direction we're going in, and now expecting a lot more teams to be hosting some of their code, if not all their code, outside of Webflow in GitHub, and tracking kind of changes and stuff like that. Obviously, with a lot more code being written by agents and stuff like that, that's going to become even more important. And I think this just kind of like shifts the direction, the kind of focus a little bit more in that direction. You had a lot of stuff already with GitHub with like the custom code components and stuff like that, but adding stuff like this kind of highlights they're really trying to facilitate a lot more of that. So I thought that was quite interesting. And then AI code components. So this was like a kind of more recent release this month, and I've checked it out and had a go. And I do think it's probably inside of Webflow, in the designer, it's probably the best integration of AI we've seen so far, in my opinion. I had to play around with it. It works quite well. It obviously uses your branding. It's kind of enclosed inside of a component, so you don't have to generate full pages, which I think, in my experience, the more code you generate with AI, the worse and the more sloppy it gets. So if you can keep it quite concentrated inside components and specific use cases, that's quite cool. I used it specifically to create kind of like a calculator component for one of my clients, and it came out pretty good. This was just like one shot. But I think the thing for me that represents the biggest shift change about this feature is actually probably not what you're thinking, but it's to do with this code editor we have on the left. So I might be wrong, but for me, it's the first time I've ever noticed we've had anything but like HTML, CSS inside of Webflow. So you now get React generated inside of Webflow that you can also edit in the code editor as well. And obviously for mostly content-rich sites in the past, Webflow has kind of always taken the philosophy that you don't need React or Next.js or anything like that just to create those kind of experiences. And those are kind of additional things that you might need a developer for. But now we're seeing this inside of the designer. So for me, that just kind of suggests a little bit of a mentality shift, like we're not afraid of this anymore, and you can use agents to generate that and have it alongside your content-driven website. So yeah, like not a small feature, it was quite a big feature, but the little details like that, I think, yeah, represented a bit of a shift for me. And then outside of that, I mean, I could probably list another 50 things. As you know, there's like AI news every single day. But something I think everyone should check out is the Google AI I/O keynote. I went through it, and there is a lot of crazy stuff they're bringing out. I think Fireship called it Google's endgame, which is pretty interesting. But their AI code editor, updates to all of the models are pretty impressive. One of the kind of biggest takeaways for me, for us, for like people who are developing websites, is they've created a new version of the DevTools MCP specifically designed for agents. So if you've got agents building websites, they can then test it in Chrome themselves, and it could be useful for us. I'm not quite sure on the workflow with like something like Webflow at the minute, but supposedly, I guess in the future, there's like a tighter integration. You could have AI do a lot of like kind of more laborious stuff like QAing websites and stuff like that. So it's very cool. I definitely recommend checking it out. Sweet. That was a very brief recap. On to the presentations.
Thank you, Jimmy. Excellent roundup.